Today on Make It Happen, we will be making a wooden sword. Throughout this build, I only use common household woodworking tools such as clamps, files, sandpaper and a jigsaw. To begin, I took a scrap piece of 12mm plywood and began drawing out a Spartan sword. This grid method is one of the easiest ways to make an accurate outline. I also made sure that the blade had a tang to connect to the handle. I then clamped it down to my bench and began cutting it out with a jigsaw. A regular hand, hack or coping saw could have been used instead. Using this vise contraption, I began shaping down the profile with a set of files until it was down to the outline. It was at this point when I realized that I did not like the size of the sword, so I had to go back with a jigsaw to reduce the size of the scale. Using the reference image, I marked out where the beveled edge was supposed to go and began removing those corners. You will have to take it slowly for the tip of the blade so you don't snap it off. The handle and guards were scrap pieces cut out to the right proportions and glued onto the tang, where I then spent 2 days filing them down to the right shapes. Since plywood tends to go a bit fuzzy when carved, I found that applying a little bit of wood glue to the surface tends to make it tougher, which makes it easier to sand. I then applied a multi-purpose gap filler to fill in all of the imperfections. If you wanted a natural wooden sword, you'll have to minimize your imperfections and use a wood filler. This was then sanded down with 120 grit sandpaper. For painting, I started with 2 layers of grey primer and then a silver spray for the bladed edges. I then taped off the edges so that I can hit the center with a charcoal spray. For the handle, I started with an almond spray base, which I then brushed on multiple shades of brown. The brush lines give it a wood grain texture. The guards started with a silver base and then were airbrushed with a mixture of gold and bronze, which took a few tries to get the desired tone. I then painted on black strips to give it a more cartoony look and sealed it off with a clear coat. For weathering, I started by brushing on a brown and a black acrylic wash, which were then wiped away. The blade looked a bit too modern with its distinctive edge line, so using the charcoal spray and an old brush, I dabbed along the line to give it a rough oxidized look. The last thing to do is seal off the weathering with a clear coat. By now you'll have your very own sword. If you have enjoyed this tutorial and would like to see more, please subscribe to Make It Happen.